The program as being a new Gail Devers, if you will, and what a very impressive set of shoes that would be to fill. Certainly looked very, very good, and we're going to show her again now as she takes the baton. Sedwick we're talking about for the final 100.
All right, Tonya Sedwick with the baton right now is handing off to Caryl Smith on the anchor for UCLA. This is Smith in the blue, Michelle Taylor for USC. Tonya Sedwick ran a great third leg, gave Caryl Smith about a 1.5, 2 meter lead, and Michelle Taylor cannot make it up. Caryl Smith holds her off here to win the 4x100 relay for UCLA. Great anchor leg by another sophomore, Caryl Smith.
So the Bruins with a very impressive win in the 4x100 for women. The time unofficially at 45.2. SC finishing second. Michelle Taylor on the anchor. I may have confused you a bit. Sedwick passing off to Smith, who ran the anchor leg for the Bruins, and a fine baton pass. We'll be back with more competition from Stanford University, the Pacific 10 Conference track and field. Next up, the next bit of competition will be the men's 1,500 meters. Reggie Williams of UC Berkeley is a scratch in this. Cushing-Murray of UCLA will be a man you'll be watching, Vic Holchak, along with Alan Foster, the talented youngster from Oregon. You see the collegiate record, Pac-10 record.
He's concerned about showing empty stands in the background.
Take a look at the people who figured to be there or thereabouts in this event. Cushing-Murray of UCLA, Alan Foster of Oregon, Schumann of Washington, Dalton of Oregon, along with Ottaway of California, Peterson, Oregon, Griffin of USC, Quade of Arizona, Crowley of Stanford.
Something like this, let him run through the frame.
Number 83 is Alan Foster, the 19-year-old best runner, they say, to come out of Oregon.
He's the finest middle distance runner in the history of Oregon interscholastic racing. He was the fastest high school runner in America last year at 1,500 meters, ran 3:47 and change, and he has taken his PR down in the last 3 weeks to 3:46 and change, 3:45, and 3:42 and change. That's Dave Ottaway. He's a 28-year-old from Great Britain. This man, by the way, has run the fastest mile ever, faster inside Awida, faster than Steve Cram, rather 1,500 meters, 3:27, but it was in a special downhill race, so it'll never count anywhere. John Quade from Arizona, second last year, third in 1987, and Quade, a lot of people think, is the favorite in this race. He's an outstanding 1,500 meter mile prospect out of the state of Washington, running for Arizona. This is a great field, Tom. Any one of several 4 or 5 runners could win this, and there are 3 ducks in this race, so they could put on a lot of tactical bumping and, you know what, in this.
All right, remember that this is a 440-yard track, and you're watching the men's 1,500. And mentioned Foster, it really would be no big disgrace to finish second in a field of this caliber, would it?
Well, he's young. He just turned 19. He's not used to racing in this kind of a field. This is a very good collegiate 1,500 meter field. Christian Cushing-Murray in first right now. Dave Ottaway in second. John Quade, one of the favorites, back and forth. Foster back toward the back of the pack, and they're on a very, very slow early pace.
For the Trojans, running in this event is Ray Griffin, and the field is very, very closely bunched now, and still leading is the man from UCLA.
And already Foster, sensing the very slow pace, has moved right up on Ottaway's shoulder outside of John Quade, behind the leader Christian Cushing-Murray. Cushing-Murray had a personal record about a month ago, 3:42, and 3:42.12. He just missed the NCAA qualifying standard.
Went the first quarter, Vic, in 69.1. That's Schumann of Washington, who is running in the number 3 spot as they are on the far side of the track here at Stanford University. Again, still pacing the field is Cushing-Murray.
And this is a painfully slow pace, Tom. Very, very slow. It's going to come down to a big kick at the end if they stay at this pace.
Well, a pace like this keeps everybody in this race, and I don't know just how good that strategy is.
Well, a lot of people will say, you hear this all the time, it looks like a tactical race. It may be a tactical race for the 1 or 2 guys in the race with the best kick. It's a very dumb race for the people in this race that do not have a big kick.
That's Schumann now of Washington, who seems to have tired of the slow pace and has gone out and taken a lead and is going to force something here to take place.
And Dave Ottaway and Christian Cushing-Murray trying to go with him.
Ottaway has gone out there with him. And suddenly the pace has quickened noticeably as Schumann of Washington has moved out in front, and now the field begins to go widen out just a bit. The half mile in 2:11.9. Not earth-shattering to be sure.
And we were talking about Alan Foster. He's dead last, but he's beginning to make a big kick on the outside right now. The 19-year-old freshman going by Christian Cushing-Murray, moving into 6th place at this point.
He's not a very big miler. He kind of looks like Jim Beatty a little bit in his size.
Oh no, Foster's 6'1", 6'2". He's right behind Ray Griffin right now.
He doesn't look very big. Oh yes, I see him now. Excuse me. And now Griffin has come up to take 2nd place.
400 meters to go.
And Griffin is challenging for the lead now against Schumann of Washington as they run shoulder to shoulder. 2:54.5. 2:54 with a lap to go.
All right, now they'll have the wind at their backs, but when they come off the final turn and come into the final 100, they'll be running right into a very strong headwind.
It's going to be a battle right to the wire now as they make the far turn, headed for the stretch and the wire.
This is John Quade coming outside from Arizona, one of the early favorites, and Foster trying to stay with him.
Quade, though, is going to pull away and take it, and the 2 Oregon runners are going to finish 2nd and 3rd, but Quade is going to win it.
And Alan Foster up for 2nd place. Dave Ottaway from Cal was 4th.
So Foster takes 2nd, and Peterson, Foster takes 3rd, and Peterson of Oregon would...
I'm sorry, Tom. You were right. Foster did take 2nd.
And Peterson finished 3rd for the Ducks, but Quade of Arizona was the winner. And the time, 3:50.2. So about midway through this race, or with just a little less than half to go, why the pace quickened and moved on for this 1500. You can see across the way with this closing lap as Quade is making his move on the front runner.
That's Eric Peterson from Oregon. John Quade into 2nd place right here. And you see Foster, who we talked about earlier, in 4th place here. They come off this turn. They're bucking a very, very strong headwind.
Most of the time you would hear of wind aided. Here today you might very well use the phrase wind hampered, because this straight, the straightaway and the finish line, you're running dead into the wind, but it didn't seem to bother Quade of Arizona. 3:50.2. He's with Dwight Stones. Let's go to Dwight.
John, when they went out so slow the first lap, is that something that you were hoping you would see happen, and you knew it would come down to a sprint at the end?
Well, usually Pac-10 races usually go out slow, and I knew I had good finishing speed, so I was kind of counting on it.
Did you bide your time knowing that that headwind down the home stretch was going to be a tough thing to bear?
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to take it out and lead everybody through a fast pace, but I don't think the wind was that bad. The race really started going, though, with 300 to go. There's quite a bit of pushing and shoving on the far turn there, and it was anybody's race at that point.
Congratulations, nice race.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Dwight, and our congratulations to John Quade, Arizona, the winner of the men's 1500. We'll be back with more of the Pac-10 championships right after this message. Next up, the women's 1500-meter event. Warren of Oregon has the collegiate record set in 82. The Pac-10 meet mark set by Annette Hand of Oregon in 1988 at 4:17.20. Some interesting competitors in this. Take a look at the lane assignments. First of all, Christy Bosch of UCLA, and then Denacimento of Washington State, Smythe of Arizona, Kohler of Washington State, Thompson of UCLA, Amy Goodwin of USC, Lisa Johansson is not in, Bellotta of Stanford, Leslie Noll, there's Johansson of Oregon, Chapul of UCLA, and Clark of USC. Is that Don Clark's?
And Tom, Bridget Smythe should be the favorite here. She was upset yesterday in the 3,000 meters by Jennifer Roberson from Washington State. Smythe ran not the smartest race. She let Roberson get too far in front on the back stretch. So this is her best race. Bridget Smythe from Great Britain. She's from Brighton, where she runs for the Phoenix Club, the same club that the great Steve Ovett, Olympic champion in 1980 for Great Britain, runs for. Bridget Smythe from Arizona. Both Leslie Noll from USC and Laura Chapel from UCLA are going to try to double back, by the way. That means they're going to come back in about 35 minutes. Just after this race, 35 minutes later, they're going to try to run the 800 meters as well. It's going to be very, very tough on these women coming down this straightaway. It's not so bad on the backstretch where they're starting now, but once they come around that first turn and come into the straightaway where the sprints are run, they're running straight into the wind. So the last 2 laps could be painful here.
The wind is a swirling, irritating thing here at Stanford Stadium. It really is a gusty thing, and down the straight, you're running right smack dab into it. There's the start. Smythe has taken an early lead, although it is difficult to call a leader there, as you have 2 or 3 of them across the track, all running at about the same pace as they get this 1500 underway. Smythe on the
Stanford right behind her.
Smythe of Arizona and USC's Chapel running in the number 3 spot. Closely bunched.
Shannon Clark from USC and Leslie Noll from USC on the outside.
Smythe still running in front.
Very, very slow pace again. That's Shannon Clark from SC in 3rd on the outside, and Belota from Stanford right behind Bridget Smythe.
But again, as you've indicated, Vic, it appears to be a very slow pace.
Well, as John Quade said to Dwight, oftentimes in a conference championship like this, you have a very slow pace like this, and this is exactly what Chapel and Leslie Noll want, because they know they have to come back in 35 minutes and run another very, very tough race.
Smythe of Arizona continues to lead first quarter mile in 1:16.3. 1:16.3. Washington State now taking the lead.
Cindy Kohler from Washington State.
But Smythe of Arizona is not letting her get too far in front.
Smythe was very upset after that race yesterday. She should have won that race. She felt she should have won it. She probably should have. Roberson is a great freshman talent from Washington State. Roberson beat her yesterday, but Bridget Smythe really wants to come back and take this 1500-meter race today.
Oregon has a runner moving up into the number 4 spot now. Washington State running 3rd.
That's Lisa Johansson from Oregon in 4th place. Dina Ciamento is in 3rd. Bridget Smythe right on Kohler's shoulder in 2nd. And Leslie Noll beginning to make a move on the outside for USC. Laura Chapel is in a pretty bad position now. She's in a bad box at the back of the pack right now. Laura Chapel trying to fight her way outside. That's UCLA's Laura Chapel going outside. Leslie Noll trying to stay with her.
Pat Thompson of UCLA is also in that race, but she, like Chapel, is well back in the pack. Half mile in 2:31.
A very, very slow pace.
Washington State continues to lead.
Kohler, Bridget Smythe from Arizona is in 2nd.
And again, Ciamento of Washington State running 3rd or 4th, now dropping to 4th.
That's Johansson of Oregon outside of Dina Ciamento.
And the Bruins are making a bit of a move as well, coming up on the outside.
And that's Laura Chapel.
Coming on to contest. Moving back in front is Smythe now from Arizona, taking over the lead. And now you've got Oregon moving up to the number 3 spot. Washington State beginning to fade. And with the gun lap, we've got Chapel moving up to the number 4 spot, and even as we speak, she puts on a burst of speed and is contending now and has taken over the number 2 spot and set dead aim on Smythe in the number 1 position. A lap to go, 3:22.2, Vic Holchak.
And Johansson looks very strong. They have 300 meters to go. Bridget Smythe trying to hang on to the lead. Laura Chapel in 2nd, Johansson in 3rd, Dina Ciamento coming up into 4th place. Leslie Noll's got a real battle if she's going to score here from USC, and she's making a move now.
She's moved up into the number 5 spot, has dead aim on number 4, and is coming up to and passing Di Nascimento, headed for the number 3 spot, and Johnson, quite a run here.
Leslie Noll coming on now.
I don't know if she's got enough to catch the front runners, but she's taken dead aim now on Chapel of UCLA and has gone in front of her. Here she comes with Smythe ahead of her as they head down the final 50.
She's going to get her.
I don't know if she
Oh, yeah, she's going to get her.
Going to get her. You're right. What a great run by Noll. What a truly great run. Noll comes on to win at Smythe, and I believe that Chapel got third, did she not?
Yes, she did. Now, Tom, we talked about tactical races. This was a classic example. This was a great tactical race for one person in the race, Leslie Noll. It was a dumb race for everybody else in that race. They played right into Leslie Noll's hands here. Right, she couldn't have asked for a better race.
No, in fact, the times indicated that it was going to be slow, and you said as they started out, what an ideal setting for her, because she's going to come back and run again, and so she had a magnificent opportunity. Watch her now as she just overcomes the entire field. She's moved up now and will now be in the number 4 spot, and Vic, she never faltered a moment.
She goes by Lisa Johansson here. She'll get Laura Chapel, then she'll get Bridget Smythe. Tom, Leslie Noll's 21. She'll be 22 years old tomorrow. She has split a 400 meters on a relay in the low 54s. She has the best sprinting speed. She's got the best sprinter speed of anybody in this field. You see her go right by Bridget Smythe, 21-year-old sophomore from Great Britain, University of Arizona. Leslie Noll winning the 1,500 meters, timed her move perfectly.
Beautifully run race by Noll, and she wins it going away over Smythe. Chapel was third for UCLA. What a great win for the lady from Troy. Let's go to Dwight Stones in the winner.
Leslie, it was a brilliantly run race, but in the light of the fact that in 40 minutes you're coming back to run the 800, did you really want to have to put on that kind of a sprint with over 200 meters to go?
Well, I didn't want to lead it, so I hung back, and going in the last quarter, I was way back. And so I started to put on a kick about 200 to go, and it just kept coming. I thought, I can get that person, I can get this person, so I kept going. And I thought, hey, might as well not come in second. Go for it.
Well, what should we look for in the 800, but now that you've had to put that kind of a sprint?
Well, I'm going to try to do it again. I won it last year, so I want both wins.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What a great victory for Leslie Noll. Our congratulations to her. You'll see her again. Smythe second. Chapel came in third. We'll be back with more right after we pause for this announcement. Western Pac-10 Conference Track and Field Championship telecast is brought to you by your Southern California Chevrolet dealers, who are offering 2.9 GMAC financing or up to $1,000 in factory cash rebates on selected models. By Stroh's and Stroh Light. Now you're talking good times, and Stroh's has spoken here. And by Great Western's family of companies with over $32 billion in assets, 100 years strong, will always be there. Welcome back to Stanford University, Stanford Stadium. It's a beautifully blue sky, sunshine-filled day, though the wind is brisk and breezy. We move now to the 110 hurdles for men. You see Reinaldo Nehemiah is the man who holds the collegiate record out of Maryland. Greg Foster of UCLA. Boy, was his career star-crossed in the past year. And, of course, some talent in this one to be watched and enjoyed. In lane number 1, nobody out of Washington State University. Mark McDonald will be running. Kevin McPherson out of UC Berkeley. In lane 3, or 4, I should say, will be Bob Gray of Oregon, a man to watch. Tony Lee of Washington State, another to watch in lane 5. Bob Redding of USC in lane 6. And then in lane 7, Peter Kalaturis of Stanford, and Dana Hall, whom we saw give his all a while ago and finish second in that 4x100. He's in there now running in lane number 7. I'm talking about Gray and Lee and Redding. Is that where the race is, Vic Holchak?
Well, Redding's the defending champion. He's the clear-cut favorite here. Gray is a freshman, great high school hurdler. Lee is a sophomore from the People's Republic of China, from Beijing, from Washington State. Redding should win this race. The battle should be between Gray and Lee for second place. And talking about the team competition, of course, Oregon needs a second place from freshman Bob Gray. They really need it now.
All right, you'll see Gray running in lane 3. Actually, he's in lane 4 because nobody's running in lane 1. He'll be the third man as they come to the first set of hurdles. Redding has taken a brief lead. Lee is running second.
Here comes Redding now.
Redding has taken a lead, but Lee is right there with him, a stride behind. Redding and Lee, and boy, very close for third. Might have been Gray who got there, and it could very well have been Kalaturis of Stanford as well, Vic.
Again, those points very, very important. If Bob Gray only got fourth place here, Oregon is in trouble at this point. They were disqualified in the 4x100 sprint relay. This was a big moment for Oregon.
And Redding, who has won it before, watch him again as they come out of the box and go over that first hurdle. That's Redding in the middle and Lee right next to him. That's where the race really boils down, with Redding winning it. And then you see Gray in the green and the gold of Oregon, and he was scrambling hard to get third place.
Well, Tony Lee got a very good start. It took 3 hurdles for Robert Redding to catch up with him. Redding clearly in command of the race at this point, good form. He fell in the NCAA championships last year, was knocked down by Florida State's Arthur Blake. Robert Redding, who you see winning the race right here, good form, good lift across the finish line. Redding, one of the favorites for the NCAAs coming up in 2 weeks in Provo. Now watch Lee, Washington State, the gray trunks and the scarlet vest, has the lead at this point, but Robert Redding, not a lot of wasted motion. Redding didn't panic at that point. Redding coming on at this point, he's got the lead now. He holds it through to the finish.
Gray was having some trouble with the hurdles. He staggered over 2 or 3. There's one there that he knocks flat, and another. So Gray really had kind of a rough going. Let's go to Dwight Stones and the winner, Bob Redding. Dwight?
Robert, second time you've won this meet. Let me know about how the wind is affecting an event like the hurdles. If you have it in the head, it's not so bad. You have a tailwind, it really makes you run up on the hurdles when you're as big a guy as you are.
That's true. When it's on your tail, it blows you right up against the hurdle. So the thing is to stay tall and run strong. If it's in your face, you got to lean into it a little bit.
You look like you were really concentrating on your technique, especially through the middle part of the race.
It's important that I stayed in my race. The guy next to me, Tony Lee, got out really fast, so I had to concentrate and win my race.
It's a nice race. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Robert Redding, the winner, and Tony Lee finishing second. Kalaturis of Stanford got up for the number 3 spot at the men's 110-meter hurdles. Back with more right after this. Field is getting set for the women's 100-meter hurdles. Kohlmeyer of Oregon, as you see, Gail Devers-Roberts of UCLA has the collegiate and Pac-10 meet record, and why not? What a magnificent runner. All right, the lane assignments now. Kamala Kohlmeyer of University of Oregon will be running in lane 1. Effie Dates of University of Southern California in lane 2. Tiffany Smith of UCLA, Janeene Vickers of UCLA, Nicole Thompson of UCLA, and Nikki Williams of UCLA in lanes 3, 4, 5, and 6. Joyce Schweim of Washington in lane 6, and Lori Smith of UC Berkeley in lane 7 and lane 8.
Tom, we talked to great. Here's Janeene Vickers, the great sophomore. She's a 5'7", 145-pound sophomore. 2 years ago, Janeene Vickers was the outstanding female high school athlete in the country. Last year had a great freshman season. She's the favorite here. Now, Tom, UCLA, we talked a lot about the men's point scores. On the women's side, UCLA can score 28 points in this event. They are favored to go 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be 28 points, and that would go a long way toward getting the Bruins where they want to be in the women's team scores.
Vic, this is so close in the scoring. It's too close to call, but right now Oregon with 59, UCLA with 57, and Arizona with 56. Those are the point standings through event number 9 for the women.
So you see how important it would be for UCLA to sweep this. 28 points they can get in this with a 1, 2, 3, 4 sweep. This could be the determining factor in the women's meet right
Arizona
here.
has nobody entered, and Oregon has Kohlmeyer running in lane 1, and they're getting set and into the blocks, while the Bruins have Smith, Vickers, Thompson, and Williams all bunched right in the middle. They could easily sweep this, and of course Vickers.
Oh, Vickers the favorite.
She's in lane 4.
Last year in the Pac-10, she won the 400 hurdles. She was second in the 400.
Good start. Kohlmeyer of Oregon in lane 1. Vickers in lane 4 has assumed a position of the lead and is going to, it appears, run away with it altogether, Vic.
It's a Bruin sweep.
It's going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. The Bruins led by Janeene Vickers sweeping the women's 100. Boy, that's as emphatic a victory by a group or an individual as we've seen. And what just an easy routine win, 13-7 for Vickers.
Well, consider the fact that Bobby Kersey has coached both Jackie Joyner-Kersey and Gail Devers-Roberts, the co-holders of the U.S. record for the 100-meter hurdles. You see his hurdlers right here, how effective they are. Tiffany Smith had a good start. She's battling with Effie Dates of SC as Janeene Vickers takes the lead here. Vickers very strong. This is a woman we'll see later against Leslie Maxey in the 400-meter hurdles. Look how smooth, how strong she is as she barrels toward the finish line here.
Looks like Thompson got second as well, and then it's Smith getting third, and then getting fourth was Nicole Williams. What an impressive sweep by the ladies in the light blue of UCLA. And here's another look, Vic, and what a great camera angle this is to watch a race.
You know, there's not a lot of wasted motion here. These are young hurdlers. Kersey loves to coach this race. Bobby Kersey, the coach at UCLA, he was a 400-meter hurdler himself. He stresses fluidity, not wasting a lot of motion as you go over the hurdles, which young hurdlers oftentimes do.
Did you see Vickers? She glanced back to see where everybody else was. There she is. She's the winner, and a happy young lady to be sure, and she's down there with Dwight Stone.
Janeene, you led a Bruin sweep that really should wrap up the team scoring. Tell me a little bit about the race. The win is something that we've been talking to all the athletes about.
I think when you're really hyped up, you really don't feel the win. And so our main purpose was to get the sweep. It means a lot to our scoring. And that was my main concern, just get the sweep. I want to see 4 Bruins come in, 1, 2, 3, 4.
After you saw the replay, how do you feel about the way you ran the race?
I ran, really it's a raggedy race. It was no form. I lost all form, but I said form wasn't the goal today. It was just get across the line any which way but blue.
Well, I'm sure Bobby will be telling you about your form a little bit later.
I'm sure he will too.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, Janeene Vickers leads a Bruin sweep with Thompson and Smith finishing second and third. The Bruins pile up some big points. More of the Pac-10 meet right after this message. All right, coming up next on the coverage of the Great Western Pacific 10 Conference Track and Field Championships here at the Farm, we're at Stanford University. In lane 1 is going to be Dave McKinney of Washington State. Klaus Weigelt will be in lane 2. Lee Evans of San Jose State has the collegiate mark, and the Pac-10 set by Danny Everett of UCLA just a year ago. I was ahead of myself. Let me go back and give you the lane assignments. You see them now. McKinney of Washington State, Weigelt running for the University of Oregon in lane 2. Mike Marsh of UCLA in lane 3. Travis Hanna of USC in lane 4. Steve Lewis, the Olympic star, in lane 5. And Mike Stevenson of UCLA running in lane 6. So again, we have 3 members of the UCLA squad in here running in lanes 3, 5, and 6. Steve Lewis, double gold medalist. Boy, what a talent. Remember the race we saw him in just about a year ago, Vic Holchak? What a great performance he turned in.
Set the world junior record in this meet last year, finishing second to his teammate Danny Everett. Then Lewis was in that incredible race in Zurich last August when Butch Reynolds ran 43:29. No one expected Steve Lewis to win the Olympic championship. They thought it would be either Butch Reynolds or Danny Everett. Steve Lewis with a brilliant race in Seoul to win the gold medal.
Give me a note or two on this man Marsh that we see on the screen now.
All right, Mike Marsh made the Olympic team last year, Tom, as an alternate on the sprint relay. He was the favorite coming into this meet to win the 100 and maybe the 200 meters as well. He's had a hamstring problem, so the sprint coach at UCLA, John Smith, has decided to run him in this race instead because the longer gradual turns, especially here with the banks, don't put as much strain on the hamstring. They want a second place out of Mike Marsh because Travis Hanna, the freshman from the University of Southern California, who, by the way, went to the same high school Mike Marsh went to, Hawthorne High. Travis Hanna, an outstanding freshman at USC. Hanna really is sort of the favorite for second place here. Marsh would like to take that away from him.
Well, is there any doubt in your mind that Lewis is not going to win this, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's the afternoon. I think it's daylight. I think it's Sunday. I think Steve Lewis is going to win this. John Smith is smiling at us down there.
How about Weigelt, the young man running for Oregon?
Weigelt is a fine talent. He's a West German from Munich. He's capable of running in the low 46s, but the battle here should really be for second place, and it should be between Mike Marsh in lane 3 and Travis Hanna in lane 4. Marsh has the advantage because he'll be able to watch Hanna. He's inside in 3, Hanna, of course, in 4, Steve Lewis in 5. The Olympic champion, brilliant 20-year-old athlete.
And, of course, the other two gentlemen in the race are David McKinney of Washington State in lane 1, Mike Stevenson of UCLA running in the outside lane. And as they make the turn, it would appear that Marsh of UCLA has taken the lead. Running right behind him is Hanna.
And Lewis has also had hamstring problems, so Smith and the Bruins don't want Lewis to go out that fast. They're coming up on 200 meters now. Steve Lewis is starting to move.
And Hanna is dropping back, and the Bruins, as they make the turn and come for the straight, are going to be well out in front, and that's Steve Lewis, who is running well out in front. And running very well is Weigelt of Oregon. It's a battle for second place. Here's Hanna coming back on again.
Marsh is going to get second.
Marsh got second, Hanna third, Weigelt took fourth.
Mike Stevenson from UCLA was 5th. Big points for the Bruins. That's what they wanted. They wanted to go 1-2, and they got it.
45-7 unofficially for Lewis. Second place going to Marsh, and third place to Hanna. Let's isolate now on Steve Lewis, the Olympian. All of a sudden, he's very much involved in the race.
He's so easy, Tom. He's so fluid, so easy. Steve Lewis, who this year could again be, or should be, in the low 44s, maybe even in the high 43s. The Olympic champion last year. He's 100 meters away, and look at the battle here between Marsh and Hanna. Hanna trying to come on Marsh. Marsh goes by Weigelt, but here's Steve Lewis. Last year at age 19, ran on UCLA's NCAA championship 4x4 team, second in the NCAA Open 400, gold medalist at the Olympics. And there's Marsh holding off Travis Hanna. Marsh in the UCLA gold and blue. Hanna trying to catch him, doesn't quite have it. They went to the same high school. Hanna last year was the California State High School champion at 400 meters. He's a freshman. Marsh is a senior.
Weigelt, the young man from Oregon, was there for most of that race and then just couldn't stand the pace as Lewis went by him, and then Marsh went by him, and then Hanna went by him, and he finished 4th in the overall scheme of things. Well, the winner, Steve Lewis, and Dwight Stones is calling him over down below to visit with him. Stones, you know, was in 3 Olympic Games, in 72 at Munich, 76 at Montreal, 84 in Los Angeles. He's one of America's premier track and field performers, and he's standing next to one of the best. Dwight, we'll send it down to you and the winner, Steve Lewis.
Such kind words, Tom. Thank you very much. With the winner, Steve Lewis, it looked a little slow out of the blocks, protecting that leg, but you really picked it up with about 200 to go.
Yeah, the track is a little bit different, too, so I wasn't sure. You know, my injury, I didn't want to take the chance, so I just kind of took it out a little slow, and I felt my way through, and I felt pretty good. My leg didn't hurt me yesterday and didn't hurt me as I was running. So I said, well, maybe I can do the 400 a little better.
I wanted to ask you about the track. It seems as though some of the sprint races we've seen have been a little bit slow here, and with the swirling wind, it's a little tough to really gauge how fast you're going.
Yes, it is. As far as getting your settings, when you're for instance, when the first and second leg has his markings off, and it's I guess it's a misperception, because when the first man is coming around, he can't really get a feel of where his second man usually is. The second man can't get that feel either. So it's kind of difficult, and the curves are longer than we're used to, especially new guys coming in. But I still think everyone's here competing very well.
Congratulations. I'm sure you got their whole season ahead of you.
Oh yeah, very.
All right, our congratulations to Steve Lewis. You see him again, magnificent form as he runs away from the field in the 400. We'll be back with more. Marsh second, Hanna third. Has taken a commanding lead. This is the men's current scoring, 93, Oregon 69, Washington State 49 to the women. And Oregon with a 2-point advantage over the Bruins. Arizona just 3 points back in 3rd place. And what a story we'll have before that is determined. The women's championship coming up, the women's 400. Oregon has 2 contestants in here. UCLA has 1. And of course, Washington State with 2 and UC Berkeley. Here's how they line up In lane number 1, McLean of Washington State. Lane 2, Alvernega of Berkeley. Sedwick of UCLA. Then Dren of Washington State. And from Oregon, Setterholm and Church.
All right, Tonya Sedwick, who we saw earlier run that great third leg on the Bruin 4x100 relay, she's got her work cut out for her. Celestine Indren from Washington State, from the Ivory Coast, represented the Ivory Coast running the 800 meters in the 1984 Olympics, ran the 400 in Seoul. Very, very tough.
False start. No one here from the University of Arizona entered in this race, so the Lady Wildcats can't pick up any ground.
And going back to the team scoring, of course, UCLA needs the points here.
They trail by 2 to the University of Oregon, as we showed you a moment ago. And Arizona, third place in the standings, is 3 points back of the leader, and in third place, a point back of the Bruins. So this is a very important race.
That's Indren right there, Tom. She was barely 16 when she won the African 400-meter championship in 1981. She's an excellent 800-meter runner. 2 years ago, Celestine Indren, who we're looking at right here, won the Pac-10 championship at 800 meters. Her personal record is 52.04. That was set in the quarterfinals at the Olympics in Seoul last year.
When the wind gusts again, we can feel it here in the stands, and it's a cool wind that's blowing.
And we'll also see Tonya Sedwick in the 200 meters coming up.
She's in lane 3. And away they go. Sedwick in lane 3. Indren in lane 4. And the 2 Oregon runners, Setterholm and Church, to the top of your screen.
And Indren is already beginning to make up the stagger on Susie Setterholm, a fine 400-meter runner from Oregon. Indren with the lead now. They've got a little less than 300 meters to go. Sedwick trying to stay with her.
And
Sedwick's moving on her. Yes, she is.
Moving up on her. Indren has taken the lead, and Sedwick is going to be in second place.
Well, they're running on staggers now. Sedwick has the lead at this point. It's deceptive because they're in staggered lanes. As they come off the turn with 100 meters to go, it's going to be neck and neck, Sedwick and Indren.
I think Indren has the lead, Vic, as they turn and come for home by a couple of strides. Indren easily in front. Sedwick doesn't appear to be gaining on her. In fact, coming up very fast on the outside, but not going to get there. That's Indren, and Sedwick is going to hang on for second. Sedwick gets second.
Indren timed that perfectly. They were pretty close coming off the turn because the staggers are deceptive, but as they came off that turn, Indren started to move, and Tonya Sedwick, there's Celestine Indren right there. Sedwick, who's had a long week of it. You see right here, Sedwick really has a bit of a lead here because they're in staggered lane. She's made up a lot of the stagger. Indren starts to move right here, timed it just perfectly. She knows that Sedwick's tired. And Indren timed it absolutely perfectly. Moves into the lead here. Sedwick dropping back. Celestine Indren from Washington State, former Pac-10 800-meter champion, winning her second Pac-10 championship, this time in the 400 meters. And Indren could be a factor in the NCAA championships coming up in 2 weeks in Provo.
Speaking of the NCAAs coming up, well, we'll talk about that in just a moment. Right now, with the winner, we'll go again to Dwight Stones, right?
You look very, very strong and consistent throughout the race, and then really picked it up in the last 110 meters.
Yes, kind of fell on the left side, so I said, well, I need to go, and that's what I did.
I can tell you're paying for your effort. You really had to drive hard down that last straightaway into the wind.
Yes, I believe that.
Was this a key race for you for the NCAAs?
No, I was already qualified for the NCAA 3 weeks ago, and it's just a kind of good effort today.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
A very nice effort indeed, a very nice victory for the young lady from Washington State and the Ivory Coast. We're back with more of the Pac-10 Track and Field Championships after this. This is the final and championship day of competition here, but yesterday, Saturday, some very important events decided as well. Our Dwight Stones has recapped that for you, and to tell us about it, let's go to Dwight.
Time now to go back and review some of the action that took place on the field on Saturday afternoon. Many times the performances from the throwers and the jumpers have a profound effect on the outcome of the team battle. Over the years, many leads have gone on the track, have been reversed by unexpected field event efforts. Here's the men's shot put. And stepping here, you see the collegiate and Pac-10 records. John Brenner, UCLA, 71-11 in the NCAA meet a number of years ago. This is Jack Trahan, a junior from the University of Arizona. He stepped into the ring for his second effort of the afternoon and wasted no time in establishing himself as the one to beat. A personal best and University of Arizona school record toss, 64 feet, 10 inches, a 1-foot improvement over his previous best, and that held up as the winning throw. Now, UCLA senior David Wilson, considered by many to be a favorite coming into this meet. He was our hammer throw winner on Saturday with a UCLA school record, 224 feet, 8 inches in the hammer. Multi-talented thrower for the Bruins. This his fourth throw of the competition. And the roar of the crowd, a 64 feet, half-inch effort, and he wound up in second place. Now, here's the real story from the standpoint of the team scoring. Little known and unheralded UCLA sophomore Eric Bergreen, who was only a 59-foot thrower a few weeks ago, stepped into the circle for his initial attempt and popped a personal best distance, 62 5 3/4. That led the competition at the time, a 2-foot improvement over his previous best. He ends up in third place, picking up some much-needed points for the Bruins. But that wasn't all the good news for UCLA. On his third effort, Bruin junior Brian Blutrick improves. He was struggling in the early going. He goes out to 61-4 to grab fourth place, and the Bruins get a major boost in the team score with 18 points from their shot putters. Same throwers we'll be seeing in the discus throw this afternoon. That could change the overall team picture. Jack Trahan with a school record 64-10, and the Bruins goes 2 and 3. Now, the women's shot competition was not as dramatic as the men's, but it did give us a chance to see an athlete who should be a significant force in the NCAA shot and discus. Carla Garrett, a senior shot and discus thrower from the University of Arizona, absolutely dominating the field here at the Pac-10 championships. She was this year's NCAA indoor shot champion. And on this, her final effort, she reaches 53 feet, 4.5 to win the competition. She should also want to run away with today's discus competition. Now in the men's long jump. Most of the jumping took place in the first 3 rounds due to the prevailing wind conditions, typified by this man, Latin Barry, a junior from the University of Oregon, 2-time defending Pac-10 long jump champion and defending triple jump champion. On this, his opening jump, barreling down the runway, almost taking up the entire runway. This man is so large. Stretches out to 26 4 1/4, a personal best, an Oregon school record. Not bad for a big football player who led the Ducks in rushing for the past 2 years. Now, the women's long jump featured the latest in the tradition of Bobby Kersey UCLA workhorses. Tonya Sedwick, who earlier in the week won the heptathlon competition, was struggling here in the long jump through the first 4 rounds. But this was her 5th round effort. You can sure tell a Bobby Kersey coached athlete. Good sprint technique, very efficient form on the runway. And she gets 2.5 inches close to her personal best, 20 feet, 7 3/4 effort to pick up her second victory of the Pac-10 championships. And we'll see her in the 200, and we just saw her in the 400. In the men's javelin event, it was expected to be a walkover, and the competition ran true to form. University of Washington junior Darryl Roberson, who was the defending Pac-10 champion and is the American collegiate record holder at 249 feet, 6 inches. Comes down the runway. They've changed the javelins. It's a heavier javelin, and they have really reduced the distances. But on this one, he ices the competition on his first throw when the implement fell to earth. 238 feet, 4 inches. He should be a force to be reckoned with at the NCAA meet in a couple of weeks. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, the women's javelin went totally away from the form chart. Defending NCAA champion Jill Smith of Oregon had to withdraw from the competition after 3 rounds due to an injury. This USC freshman, Ashley Selman, stole the limelight on her 6th and final throw. Listen to the crowd on this one. A personal best toss, 176 feet, 10 inches. Erica Wheeler of the host Stanford Cardinal, the defending Pac-10 champion, couldn't get her act together, which opened the door for the youngster from USC. A real turnaround in this competition.
Was only 4 inches short of her lifetime best.
Now in the men's pole vault competition, Brent Burns, a sophomore of Cal, not known for his big meet performances, did a very smart thing when he decided to use a light pole and a short run-up to technique his way through some tricky winds that swirled around Stanford Stadium on Saturday afternoon. He cleared 17 feet, 6 1/4 inches to win the pole vault and nail down his first big meet victory over Johansson at Bettinger of UCLA.
Time now for the men's 100 dash. David Lockhart of Arizona, Russell of Oregon, Brooks of UCLA. Then Arizona's got Oliver, Dyer, and Knox in a row. Then Williams of UCLA and Holmes of USC. Lanes 1 through 8.
And Tom, without Quincy Watts from USC or Mike Marsh from UCLA, the early favorites, Watts was hurt. Marsh was in the 400 because he had a strained hamstring. They stayed out of this race. This is really anybody's race.
I'm here. All right, it's going to be a false start. That'll bring him back.
And one false start in the NCAA. Unless this was given to the field, somebody's going to be eliminated here.
It was the entire field. They're going to reset it. Let's us take another look and see who got out of there first, or was it a crowd that came away? It looked like the entire, from 1 through 4, all jumped the gun.
You know, it really is anybody's race. Kirk Dyer from Arizona in lane 5 is John Smith's favorite in this race. Smith, the outstanding sprint coach at UCLA. Dyer's an interesting case. He's 19. He's a freshman from Klein Forest High School in Houston. Born in Jamaica, he was on the Jamaican junior national team. He looked very good yesterday, had the fastest qualifying time. Something else about this track. This is a slow sprint track. They're running into a wind. If we have a time anywhere around 10:65, 10:70 with this field, that's excellent. You could say take 0.3 of a second off of that and put it on a track like the Modesto track or the Mount San Antonio Junior College track. This is a slow track.
Vic, are any of these people still trying to qualify for the NCAA, or is that long behind them?
Well, they're not going to do it here on this track today running into this wind. No one in this field is qualified for the NCAAs, and they won't do it today.
So again, it's Lockhart and Russell, Brooks, Oliver, Dyer, Knox, Williams, and Holmes in the men's 100. They're set again. Well, nearly so.
Williams and Holmes, Williams from UCLA, Holmes from USC in 7 and 8, both outstanding football players.
Chucky Brooks of UCLA in lane 3, and this is a good start as they get away, and Lockhart of Arizona now in the middle of the pack. It's Arizona, but on the outside, Kevin Williams, and boy, how close is it? Very close. It might have been Chucky Brooks, and it might have been Williams running 1-2. Did you see it that way,
That
Nate?
may very well have been a UCLA 1-2 sweep. If that was a Bruins sweep, they are in very, very good position. Bob Larson and the UCLA Bruins in great position to win this team title. A great start by Kevin Williams.
They're going to give him the win here, Vic. Unofficially, they've got Williams, who's nearest to you in the blue and gold of UCLA. And watch Chucky Brooks up toward the top of your screen.
Kevin Williams very strong here at about 80 meters. He's trying to hang on. Chucky Brooks trying to get up for second. I'm not sure if he does. It's very, very close for second place.
That could have been
Brooks has it.
Arizona.
Brooks has it. Brooks has it. It's 1-2 UCLA.
Well, Kevin Williams got the victory, and the Bruins may have gotten a 1-2 finish. Impressive indeed. Let's go to Dwight Stones. Unfortunately, we've lost communication with Dwight and the winner, Kevin Williams, but we'll see if we can't correct that. In the meantime, with the Bruins finishing 1-2 in the men's 100, we'll continue more coverage. First, we'll pause for this.
New package.
All right, we're going to check the team standings. After 13 events, UCLA impressively in front, 113. Oregon in second place, and Washington State in third. We turn to the women's standings in UCLA. Remember that sweep that Janeene Vickers led the Lady Bruins on? Well, it vaulted them well in front of Oregon now. And as you said, Vic Holcheck at the time, could very well have determined the outcome of this meet. Arizona is in third place.
Big victory for UCLA there. Bigger victory for the Bruin men just a moment ago. Kevin Williams, who we just saw win the 100-meter dash 2 years ago, Tom, when he was at Spring High School in Texas, he was considered the outstanding high school running back in America.
These are the lane assignments for the women's 100-meter dash. We've got Cunningham of Washington, Carol Smith of UCLA. There's Michelle Stapleton of Washington. Christy Gaines of Stanford University, lane 4 is open. Rosie Williams of Oregon running in lane 6. Gelka of Washington State in lane 7, and Stacy Rogers of UC Berkeley, California, running in lane 8. There's Carol Smith of UCLA.
And the race really should be between Caryl Smith, the sophomore from UCLA, and Christy Gaines from Stanford. She was a great high school sprinter down in Texas last year. Freshman at Stanford now. Christy Gaines, a great young talent.
Gaines is running in the
after the show, if they still have it, they'll check.
Running in lane 2 is Caryl Smith. That is Christy Gaines you see walking there on your screen. She'll be running out of lane 5. Lane 4 will be open. Wonder if that's that disconcerting. That empty lane down there, Vic, is that a problem? I know the runners like to know where everybody else is and to look over and see nothing there, but
not really. Gaines has had hamstring problems for some time now. You see she's wearing bandages or braces, tape on both thighs. Yeah, Brooks Johnson, her coach, former sprint coach for the U.S. Olympic team, says she'll probably always have those problems. He doesn't think they're serious. She's an outstanding student, Christy Gaines. She was a 4.0 student in high school. She's a pre-med student here at Stanford. Great young talent.
And her chief competition, the experts say, comes from lane 2, UCLA's Caryl Smith, and it's a good start. Gaines is in the middle of the track.
Smith with a good start.
On the outside is Rogers of UC Berkeley, but fading now, and it's a real battle. And in fact, we've got Smith, I think, breaking the barrier first. And I don't know, but what Rosie Williams of Oregon might have gotten second over Gaines, who appeared to take third.
All right, Caryl Smith is a former TAC national junior champion, won that championship a couple of years ago. She was a great high school sprinter. She ran the anchor for the Bruin Sprint Relay team. Great start by Caryl Smith in lane 2.
And she never looked back. She just continued to run at that pace, Vic. And it's interesting to note that to Gaines, perhaps the thighs or the muscles there bothering her, because Williams from Oregon got up to beat her for the number 2 spot.
Indeed she does. You see Williams coming on now with about 15 meters to go. Caryl Smith lifting very easily across the line. Very relaxed. Excellent race by Caryl Smith.
You know, the Pacific 10 has dominated NCAA track and field, really, in championships. Of course, the great Trojan teams of a few years ago, the Bruins of late. And this is such a young conference for a good many of these schools. They have so many underclassmen running and running so well.
Well, this is a year, it's interesting that it's coming after the great Olympic year last year. We have so many great freshmen and sophomores in this competition today.
All right, we'll be back with more. You're watching the Great Western coverage of the Pacific 10 Track and Field Championships from Stanford University. We'll be back after this message. Pac-10 Track and Field Championships. I'm Tom Kelly along with Vic Holchak. Down in the infield is Dwight Stones. And coming up next, the 800 run for men. You see that Cruz of Oregon setting the collegiate record, and of course he has the Pac-10 meet mark as well. 1984, been a long time between new marks in this one. Lane 1, Jay Jamerson from the University of Washington. Ibrahim Okash of the University of Southern California, one of the runners to watch in this. In lane 2, Dustin Welch of Oregon. Eric Peterson of Oregon in lanes 3 and 4. Dave Strang of Stanford is in lane 5, and Heron of Arizona in lane 6. There's a lot of people to talk about, and any one of several could win it, including this man here, Okash.
Well, Okash is from Somalia. He's a veteran runner. He's raced in 2 Olympic Games for his native Somalia. Fine athlete. Doug Heron had a great high school career up in Alaska. He's on the outside top. They'll run 100 meters. They'll go on this banked turn. They'll break for the pole after they run the turn.
And they must be careful, because we've had several athletes DQ'd in the last couple of days for stepping out of that lane before they should have, or for stepping out of their lane, period.
It looks like they're okay. Dave Strang from Stanford moving into the lead. Actually, Doug Heron from Arizona is taking the lead, followed by Strang. That's Okash in 3rd.
Strang is an interesting story. He's a native of Scotland. He grew up in South Africa. You talk about a man of the world. His mother is here watching him run, and he's attending Stanford University, and he's running in the number 2 spot now.
And he runs for the Haringey Club in London, the same club that the great Sebastian Coe, the world record holder in this race, runs for. That's Heron great high school talent a few years ago, has never really come into his own. Heron, one of the favorites here, followed by Strang. Okash outside with 400 meters to go.
And Jamerson of Washington up against the inside rail there, and the two Oregons, Peterson along with Welch, are running dead last now, and now
here comes Okash.
Trying to make a move to the outside, quarter mile and 55 flat. Now they broke it into a sprint, and there's Strang of Stanford along with Okash, and they're about 5 meters or more in front of the opposition. The rest of the field, Okash put Strang back though behind him.
Well, Strang still looks good. Strang looked terrific in the qualifying yesterday, but Okash in a very good position here. Strang trying to stay with him. Heron moving back into third place.
I think it'll be difficult for Strang to catch him, though it certainly won't be for the lack of trying. But Okash is out in front, running quite well, but it's Strang looking back to see who's closing on him. That's Arizona closing on him, but Okash now is going away from the field. Coming up very strong is Heron, and Heron gets second place.
Okash, very fluid, very easy. Oftentimes, Ibrahim Okash seems to take collegiate meets very second-handedly. Today, he was challenged on the backstretch by Dave Strang, and Ibrahim Okash replied with a great kick for about the last 250 meters. He ran in high school in Somalia with Abdi Billy, the great George Mason runner who won the world championship in the 1500 meters for Somalia. Here's Okash coming off the final curve with about 80 meters to go, putting this race away. Look at the battle with Doug Heron from Arizona coming up here to battle Dave Strang from Stanford for second place.
And it was interesting when Strang came up on Okash over on the back side, Vic Holjak. It looked as though Okash was suddenly startled into realizing somebody else is out here running on my track, and away he went.
Well, oftentimes, as we said, Okash runs very easily, and he loses a lot of these races by waiting to the last second. There, Strang said, hey, I'm here, and Okash was surprised, as you said, and ran a brilliant race.
Unofficially, 1:48.8. We'll be back as Okash wins this. The 800 for men. We'll be covering more of the Pac-10 Track and Field Championships after this message. The Pac-10 Men's Championship has belonged to the Bruins the last 2 years, and the UCLA squad looking for the hat trick. Well out in front, 131 points. Oregon second with 87, and deadlocked for third, Washington State and Arizona with a total of 59 each. That's through 15 events. We turn to the women, and the Bruin women looking for their second straight Pac-10 conference title, 104 points. Oregon, 74 points. In third place, Arizona at 56, and that is through 13 events here of the conference championship being run up at Stanford University. Next up will be the 800 run for women, and we're going to see Leslie Noll back in action. She's trying to run a double. What a brilliant race she ran. It was interesting, her comments with Dwight Stones, Vic, when she said, I said, hey, I could take this person and this one, and she came on in a great finish to win. And now she's back in with Bannon of Washington State, Johnson of UCLA, Shapul of UCLA, and Hackett of Arizona, and Holman of Oregon. All right, there's the lineup, and they're about set to get them in and ready to go in the women's 800.
And Noll and Shapul ran that 1,500 meters less than an hour ago.
And here they go again.
Again, they'll run this turn in lanes. They will break for the pole as they come off this banked turn.
Noll is running in lane number 2. In lane 1 is Holman of Oregon. And Noll is well back now as they make the turn, and after they go the first 100, they'll be able to drop down and come to the inside.
And that's Jennifer Bannon from Washington State, the early leader. Leslie Noll back in 5th. She won the 1,500 at 4:26.66. Laura Shapul, third in that 1,500, is now in 6th place, in last place.
As you watch the women run this 800, let's go to Dwight Stones down on the infield.
Well, Tom and Vic, I think the important thing is you can see, as you see Leslie Noll go way back, she's probably trying to stay out of oxygen jet the first lap and then see what she's got left with 300 or 200 meters to go and see if she can mount some kind of a charge. She really had to run hard that last 200 of the 1,500 meters, so this will be interesting. If the girls in front were smart, they try to take everything they possibly could out of Leslie Noll.
This looks like, Dwight, from up here, it looks like a much faster pace than we saw the race in which Noll was able to almost lap the field and win it.
Absolutely, no. And Leslie Noll just went by me, and she is laboring very, very clearly with 400 meters to go.
62.1 for the first quarter mile is the unofficial time we have. So almost 2 races out there, really. We've got a threesome and a threesome, and Noll is in the second threesome and seems to be well back, and in fact might very well now be in the number sixth spot.
That's
running.
Laura Chapel just moved by her. There's a good shot of the leader, Jennifer Bannon from Washington State. As Dwight said, trying to stay out of oxygen debt or whatever. Now they have the wind to their back. As they come around this turn, you see Leslie Noll in last place, Bannon leading. As they come around this turn, about 120 meters to go right now, they will be coming into that very, very tough headwind. And Julie Johnson from UCLA making a very, very big move. She's into second place now. It doesn't look like she's going to catch Bannon, but Julie Johnson making a very strong move. Laura Chapel coming up for third place.
Well, Bannon's going to win it going away, and there'll be no last-second heroics for Leslie Noll in this event, as Bannon wins it, and the Bruin ladies finish second and third. Johnson and Chapel finishing second and third, and Leslie Noll was all the way dead last, but it's almost too much to expect that she could double back against a field of this talent and do and pull off a double. But a game effort, though she did finish dead last. Here's another look at the stretch, and you can see that Leslie Noll is in the Cardinal and Gold, dead last in the event, and winning it for Washington State, Jennifer Bannon.
And a very smart race by Bannon. As Dwight said, Jennifer Bannon went out, set a very strong pace. You see Julie Johnson from UCLA getting a strong second, but Bannon ran a very, very smart race. She took the lead very quickly as they broke for the pole. She forced the pace. She didn't let them hang around and run a slow pace. She went out and commanded that race, and she certainly deserved that victory. Great race by Jennifer Bannon.
Well, I think she probably felt, say, two of these girls have already run a pretty grueling affair. I can narrow this field down to just 2 or 3 of us if I set a startling pace, and she did. We'll be back with more of the Pac-10 Conference Championships after this. We'll take just a brief moment as UCLA, both men and women, have apparently wrapped up this meet to show you things that have happened. The javelin winner, Roberson of Washington, skipper of Oregon. In the men's hammer, David Wilson of UCLA. Washington State's Billingsley was second in that. Women's shot put, Garrett, as you heard Dwight Stones talk about her. Magnificent performance again by the lady from Arizona. Women's high jump went to California, Vidakovitz. In the women's long jump, Sedwick of UCLA. What a talent this lady is. Brent Burns took the pole from California. Jack Trahan of Arizona in the men's shot put. What a magnificent effort. Latin Berry, fine football player and a great track star from Oregon, the men's long jump. The 3,000-meter steeplechase, the Stroshine of Washington State. Lopez of Oregon second. Washington coming in third. These are official results to bring you up to date. The women's 3,000, Roberson of Washington State. The men's 10,000, E.J. Quo of Washington State. The women's javelin, Selman of USC. The women's 10,000, Ash of UCLA. The women's 5,000-meter run, Jennifer Robertson again of Washington State. The women's 4x100 relay, the Bruins, the Trojans, and Washington, 1, 2, and 3. The 4x1 for men, USC winning that, Washington and California, second and third. The 1,500, Quade of Arizona, fine kick to win that one over Foster. The women's 1,500, Leslie Noll, what a stirring finish she put on for that victory. Unable to double up, though. Robert Redding easily in the 110 hurdles for men. The 110 for women, the 100-meter hurdles for women, I should see. Vickers leading a UCLA sweep that actually put the meet away for the Lady Bruins. Robertson again of Washington State, the women's 5,000. Steve Lewis of UCLA with ease leading Mike Marsh to the wire. Women's 100, Carol Smith of UCLA. Kevin Williams of UCLA in the men's 100. And Chucky Brooks running second. The 800 for men, Okash of USC and Heron of Arizona. And that brings you up to date on how your favorite athlete may or may not have done. We're going to the 400 hurdles.
Tom, the race really should be between lanes 3 and 4. Brian Wright from Oregon and George Porter, the favorite from the University of Southern California. Wright yesterday had the fastest qualifying time, or the second fastest behind Porter. Porter ran 50.36. Wright ran 50.44, and that qualified him for the NCAA championships in 2 weeks. Wright transferred from Oregon State, which dropped track and field last year, to Oregon. So it should be Wright in 3 and Porter in 4.
Baloo of Arizona's in lane 2. There is nobody running in lane 1. McDonald of Washington State and Hale outside Washington are the other members, 5 in all, on the track for this men's 400 hurdles. What a grueling, tough event this is. This is the race that Edward Moses just puts everybody in the back of the bus. Rex Cawley was a magnificent performer 100 years ago. Boy, what a tough event this is.
And George Porter's already made up the stagger on McDonald. Wright is coming on now, but George Porter, the favorite here, a finalist in the NCAA championships last year. Wright stumbled at that point. Porter now with the lead as they come off the turn. They
Two more hurdles to go. And Porter in the middle of the track would seem to have this one put away, and it's going to be a race for second between Wright and McDonald, and it's going to be Porter winning it easily, and from Oregon, Brian Wright. Third place going to Marc McDonald of Washington State, but a rather easy win for Porter. Wright never seemed to get on track, Vic, or what would be your assessment of it?
Well, he was running a pretty good race until he ran into problems on, I think, the 7th or the 8th hurdle. You see Porter here, he was a great high school runner at Lompoc High School, and a lot of people feel that this guy eventually could be a runner in the Andre Phillips mold, in the Edwin Moses mold. You're asking him to fill some pretty big shoes, but certainly here's a guy who could be a major international competitor for the United States in the years to come.
Well, there certainly was no competition between first and the people who followed, but getting up for second was indeed Wright of the University of Oregon. All right, we'll be back with more coverage of the Pacific 10 Track and Field Championships. Let's pause for this message. That is USC Athletics with the USC Sports Report. See it each Thursday on Prime Ticket, sports television at its best. Talking about things at their best, up next, the 400-meter hurdles for women. You see Leslie Maxey of USC, the Pac-10 meet holder, 57.29, set in 1987. Michelle DeCoux of the University of Southern California will be in lane number 1. Vidakovitz of UC Berkeley will be in lane 2. Vickers of UCLA in lane 3, Leslie Maxey of USC, and Karen Kellner of USC in lanes 4 and 5, and Joyce Schwem of Washington in the outside lane.
Tom, Leslie Maxey won the Pac-10 title in this race 2 years ago. She then dropped out of school last year to concentrate on making the U.S. Olympic team. She did make the Olympic team, competed in Seoul, and Janeene Vickers, as a freshman, last year won the Pac-10 title. So you have the 87 champion, Leslie Maxey, and Vickers, last year's champion.
And she's the lady who led the Bruins to a sweep for first 4 places in the 100 hurdles. And
this is one of those races that the track fans really anticipate. This could be a great matchup. Vickers and Maxey could both be battling it out for first, second, or third at the NCAA championships. Vickers was running a very strong race last year at Eugene in the NCAAs. She had problems with the last hurdle. She's had problems this year with the 9th and 10th hurdles. It almost became a mental thing with her. She looked very good yesterday. So Vickers and Maxey here. Maxey from nearby Millbrae, went to Mills High, is still the world junior record holder.
I mentioned earlier the Pacific 10 Conference, largely through the great teams the Trojans had years ago, and now the current Bruin championship teams really dominating NCAA track and field championships. And this is such a young conference, talent-wise, that one would be led to believe that they could continue for years to come.
Well, the history of UCLA, USC in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, even into the 50s and the early 60s, then UCLA, Oregon. This school right here, Stanford, has a great history going back into the 20s and 40s. This is an incredible conference. Over the past 50 or 60 years, it has indeed been the dominant track and field conference in the United States. And you're right, lots of great young talent here. Vickers, a classic example, just a 19-year-old sophomore from
And
Pomona.
Sedwick, whom we've seen, you've already likened her to Gail Devers, a big shoe.
Great talent, great talent.
All right, here they go. This is the women's 400 and Maxey over the hurdles.
Now, of course, they're running in staggered lanes
behind her, yes.
And you can tell who's leading.
Maxey
Watch who goes over the hurdle at which time.
Maxey seems to have taken the lead, and Vickers running a very close second to her. No worse than third, to be sure.
Vickers has taken the lead right now.
Maxey, Vickers coming on very strong. She was the Bruin star who led UCLA to a sweep in the 100. Now Vickers has taken the lead as she and Maxey are making the turn.
Coming up on the 8th hurdle now, Janeene Vickers with about a 10-meter lead on Leslie Maxey.
And 2 hurdles to go, and Vickers easily over that. Maxey running slower now, but in second place. It would appear that USC is going to finish second, third, and perhaps fourth, but Vickers easily winning the hurdles event. A sweep for her, and the Trojans taking second, third, and fourth. Second place going to Leslie Maxey.
Now, Janeene Vickers, who won the 100-meter hurdles earlier, winning the 400-meter hurdles here. Janeene Vickers, another one of the Bobby Kersey hurdling phenoms. We're going to watch her coming up right now. She's taking the lead from Maxey at this point. They're going into the 8th hurdle. Janeene Vickers now has established the lead. They come off the turn. This is Vickers' race. Maxey's out of it at this point. Janeene Vickers is going to dominate the rest of this race.
She made it look so easy, Vic. They've indicated a 55.9, a meet record for Vickers.
Yeah, that's an outstanding time on this track, running into this wind on the final 70 to 80 meters. Great race by Janeene Vickers, her second individual championship of the day.
It seems like she has no barriers from 100 to 400, anything she wants to do. Let's go down to Dwight Stones, find out how she feels about winning this event.
Thanks, Tom. Janeene, a little bit surprised by your victory. Leslie Maxey is a formidable opponent.
Yes, I just wanted to remain focused in on the race. Keep in mind not to shorthand myself, because Leslie is a very outstanding 400-meter hurdler, and I have the utmost respect for her. But I didn't want to let my respect for her keep me from running to the best of my performance.
It seemed as though you had a lot less trouble gauging your steps between the hurdles than some of the other hurdlers did, and that was really the key to your race.
I usually have a hard time gauging my steps. But interesting, this funny shaped track here is actually built for my steps, and so Bobby Kersey just told me to relax and let my natural stride pattern come up, and then I could win the race.
Congratulations, great race.
Thank you.
Our congratulations as well, and you can tell she was out of breath, running 55.9 against formidable talent. Did a magnificent job. We'll be back with more. We'll pause first for this message.
Here we are joining the women's discus competition, and our shot winner, Carla Garrett, the University of Arizona. And on her third attempt of the competition, she whips the plate out 198 feet 4 inches. It's an American leader. She is thrilled. Puts her even more in contention for both events at the NCAA championships back in Provo later on. Back up to you guys in the booth.
Thank you, Dwight. The NCAA will be a couple of weeks. BYU, Provo, Utah, and it's a beautiful country up there. But Vic Holchek, anything can happen. You can get 90 degrees and snow in the same day.
And Carla Garrett could very well win both the discus and the shot put in the NCAA. She's a 5'8", 250-pound senior from Santa Fe, New Mexico. She stayed out of competition last year to work on the U.S. Olympic trials. Didn't make the U.S. Olympic team in either event, but she was 5th in the discus at the trials, 7th in the shot put, and she could be a tremendous performer in the years to come for the U.S. international teams. Carla Garrett, great performance here.
We've got a field down now to just 5 for the men's 200 as they get set across the way, putting the blocks down. Running in lane 1 is Dana Hall from the University of Washington, Mark Oliver from Arizona, Percy Knox of Arizona, Chucky Brooks, you saw him with a 2nd place finish from UCLA, Dyer of Arizona, and we had Devon Russell scheduled. I don't know whether he's still in or not. Is Russell still in? Russell has been scratched, so we can take Devon Russell off of the out of contention for the 200, and
Tom,
we've got a lot of Arizona in there.
As in the 100, without Quincy Watts, without Mike Marsh, Watts from SC is hurt, is out of this competition, might run in the 4x400. He's the freshman from USC. Mike Marsh, the Olympian from UCLA, ran in the 400 meters. Without those two athletes in this race, again, this is anybody's race. But yesterday, Chucky Brooks, who, as you said, got that 2nd place in the 100, looked very, very strong in his qualifying heat.
So again, it'll be Hall of Washington, Oliver of Arizona, Knox of Arizona, then Chucky Brooks of UCLA, and Dyer of Arizona. So we've got 3 Wildcats, a Bruin, and a Husky in this one.
And Chucky Brooks is a 6'1", 174-pound junior from Oakland. He was primarily a long jumper and triple jumper, and John Smith saw him running some strides one day in practice, he said, and he said, "Oh, I think we have a sprinter as well."
So they're getting into the blocks now. All of Washington in lane 1, Oliver of Arizona in 2, Knox, Arizona in 3, Brooks of UCLA in 4, Dyer of Arizona in lane 5. Remember, this is a quarter-mile track, so they're starting on the far side, so they'll finish right directly in front of us.
And the race really should be between Knox of Arizona in 3, Brooks of UCLA in 4, and Dyer of Arizona in 5.
As they come around, heading down the stretch, around the curve, and taking over is Oliver of Arizona, who's leading. Oliver of Arizona, Brooks is running 3rd. Oliver of Arizona, Brooks coming up trying to get 2nd, but Oliver of Arizona is going to get it with Knox of Arizona 2nd, and Brooks of UCLA running 3rd, time 21:3. So Arizona runs 1-2. Bit surprising there, Vic?
No, again, it was anybody's race, and the two Arizona kids had looked good yesterday as well. Oliver and Knox have the race well in hand. Brooks comes on from 4th to get a 3rd place here.
Yeah, Dyer of Arizona tried to make it a sweep, but Brooks would have none of that and stepped in there to capture the number 3 spot. So a fine 1-2 finish by the Wildcats of Arizona, and Chucky Brooks, who had a 2nd in the men's 100, now comes back and gets a 3rd in the 200. And again, perhaps some of the better known names, though certainly one would not denigrate the talents of these runners. Marsh and Quincy Watts not involved in this one, both injured and not taking part. We'll be back with more. You're watching Great Western coverage of the Pac-10 Track and Field Championships, men and women. We're at Stanford University. We'll be back. Great Western Pacific 10 Conference Track and Field Championship telecast is brought to you by Toyota. Whatever car or truck you choose, you'll love the quality. Who could ask for anything more? And by Stroh's and Stroh Light. Now you're talking good times, and Stroh's is spoken here. And by Great Western's family of companies with over $32 billion in assets. 100 years strong, we'll always be there. All right, coming up next will be the 200 dash for women. And again, it'll be, as you watch, look down to see that Gail Devers-Roberts of UCLA has the Pac-10 meet record. Collegiate record set by the young lady from Nebraska. We have Alvarenega of UC Berkeley running in lane 1, nobody in lane 2. Tonya Sedwick of UCLA in lane 3, Michelle Taylor in lane 4, Rosie Williams of Oregon in lane 5, and Caryl Smith of UCLA, excuse me, running in the outside lane.
Now, Caryl Smith Smith has a very, very tough lane outside. It's going to be very difficult for her to run this well. She's got a steep turn to run on that banked turn. She'll be running into the wind coming off the turn. That's going to be very tough. Michelle Taylor in 4, and Sedwick, as you said, in 3. The race could be between those two and Rosie Williams in 5.
And they get away. It's a good start, and that is Taylor along with Sedwick that are running 1-2. Sedwick coming up on Taylor, and as they make the turn, it is very, very close between them. Sedwick and Taylor.
Rosie Williams.
Indeed, from Oregon. Williams actually has the lead over Sedwick. Taylor trying to close the gap. It's going to be Williams, Sedwick, and Taylor. Williams of Oregon winning it. Sedwick of UCLA taking 2nd, and Taylor of SC 3rd, and Williams winning it. The time, 23:06. What a fine race.
And running into that headwind, that's a terrific time. That's an excellent race by Rosie Williams. Very strong. Sedwick ran a very, very strong turn, had a lead coming off the turn, but Williams came back and ran an excellent final 70 to 80 meters. You see Michelle Taylor from SC trying to get 2nd, doesn't quite make it. Rosie Williams, a sophomore from Pleasant Grove, California, an outstanding young runner at the University of Oregon.
Well, the winner, Miss Williams, is down with Dwight Stones, and let's go to the infield and find out how she felt about her victory.
That has to be considered a little bit of an upset, but probably not to you.
I came out here to win, and I didn't win in the 100. I was determined that I was going to leave here with a gold and something.
How'd you feel about the speed of the track? It seems as though for the sprint times it's been rather slow, and that wind in the face off the final turn is very tough.
Yeah, my coach just told me to come out here. If you want to run a 23.55, you got to run a 22.9 to come out here and do it, because it's hard with the wind and with the track.
An outstanding performance. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So Rosie Williams is the victor and a very fine time of 23.6. We'll be back with more right after this important message. Indicated to you the Bruins of UCLA, very impressive again, 141 points. This is through 19 events. Oregon, a good determined second at 112. Arizona, 91 points in third place. To the women's standings, and again the story is UCLA, 128 points, Oregon with 76, and Arizona with 60 points. And for the women, their competition is through 15 events. Coming up next will be the 5,000-meter run for men. Remember, the track is 440 yards, so they'll be out there for quite some time. Some outstanding talent out here, and I know Marc Davis from Arizona is one that strikes your fancy, Vic Holchek.
Well, Marc Davis started this season off with a PR of 14:22.6, PR, personal record. Just last month at the Mount San Antonio College Relays down in Walnut, California, Marc Davis blitzed an amazing time, 13:32.50. That dropped his PR almost a full minute, 50 seconds. That's incredible. He's only 19. He's from San Diego, and a lot of the people very close to the sport think this kid is a real talent, somebody that, again, could be very effective in the years to come for the Americans internationally.
5,000 meters, and off they go. As you saw the field, Donnelly of Washington, Marc Davis, of whom Vic Holchek was speaking a moment ago, from Arizona. From UC Berkeley, Doug Henderson, Griffin of University of Southern California, Hudson of Oregon, Morgan of Arizona, Nassim of Washington, Ortiz of UCLA, McDowell of Washington, Quo of Washington State, and Hjort of the University of Washington. So it's a very big field, and 5,000 meters.
And Davis, who we were talking about a moment ago, right now is in second place. Marc Davis, the 19-year-old sophomore from the University of Arizona, right in second place right off the bat.
UCLA, both men's and women's teams have dominated the event, but Oregon has really done some outstanding work here, both track and field, and so has Arizona. Out in front, that's Donnelly of Washington. Am I correct, looking across the track on the far side? Is that Donnelly of Washington leading?
It's Alan Hjort of Washington.
Excuse me, Hjort, all right. The quarter mile, 68.2.
Hello. You're blowing my ear off, Tom.
Hjort of Washington is
I'm sorry,
leading.
Tom, that is Mark Donnelly.
It is Donnelly, all right.
Matt Donnelly, rather, from Washington.
Yes, and Marc Davis of Arizona running second.
And moving up on the outside now is E.J. Guo from Washington State. He's now in fourth place. And Guo from the People's Republic of China from Beijing won the 10,000 meters last night here with a brilliant final kick. So Guo could be a factor in this race as well. The favorite clearly Marc Davis, but Guo could also be a definite factor in this race.
Henderson of Cal is running third. Griffin of USC running in the number 4 spot. Then Guo running number 5, and now he and Griffin have been changing that number 4 spot back and forth, and now Guo, the young man from China, again takes over number 4, and Griffin looked like he might have stumbled a bit. He's running in the number 5 spot. 5,000 meters, and the man who continues to lead is Matt Donnelly from the University of Washington.
You know, it's been quite some time since the United States has had a truly outstanding talent in this race. A lot of people talk about the great Steve Prefontaine, the late Steve Prefontaine, back in the late 60s, the early 70s, ran such a great race in Munich in the 1972 Olympic Games. And you sort of need a character in this race. Prefontaine was a wonderful free spirit, and a lot of people see the same kind of personality in Marc Davis.
Field beginning to loosen up just a little bit now, and another Washington runner. Is that Nasheim moving up to contest, running in the number 3?
No, that's Hjort now.
Hjort
in third
running
place.
up to number 3. All right. Davis continues to run, sandwiched in by 2 Huskies, and that's Quo then of Washington State. And now Henderson again of Cal moving back up. He was at second for a long time. We had 2:15.7 for the half mile unofficially. Again, leading is Donnelly of Washington, and the young man expected to be there or thereabouts come finish time. Davis of Arizona running comfortably in second place, and Hjort of Washington has moved up to the number 3 spot. Quo is running number 4. That's Henderson of Cal. 3/4 of a mile, 3:21.8. that time translate into anything spectacular to you, Vic?
It's not a fast time.
It is not.
They are not on a fast pace. But again, you've got a guy like Guo who ran the 10,000 meters last night. He doesn't want a much faster pace than this. They have 9 laps to go right now. 9 laps of the track to go.
This is the 5,000 meter event. Griffin of USC running all by himself, literally in the second lane. Most everybody else in single file in lane 1, and Griffin is 4 from the end now. Field begins to lengthen out just a little bit more with each lap of the track. And again, Donnelly continues to lead, and Davis of Arizona running in the number 2 spot. The number 3 spot belongs to Gort of Washington, and Quo of Washington State, then Henderson. Mile 4:29.3. Let's get a comment from the man down closest to the track, Dwight Stones. Dwight, if you will.
In the men's triple jump, we had a little bit of an upset. This is Mike Harris of Cal. He beat Latin Berry of Oregon, who was a 2-time defending champion in the triple jump. Harris here on his 3rd attempt in the first flight jumps 54 feet even. He also finished second in the high jump at 7.3 1/4. Latin Berry had all afternoon to try to catch him, unable to do so. So Mike Harris is our new champion in the men's triple jump. Back up to the booth.
Thank you. Mile and 4:29.3 unofficially. We're watching the men's 5,000 meter. Donnelly of Washington, and he's leading Davis of Arizona very, very close, and still a lot of laps to go. We'll return to see how it finishes, as well as the rest of the Pac-10 Conference Track and Field Championships. But first, we'll pause for this important message. Back again, Great Western's coverage of the Pacific 10 Track and Field Championships. We're here at Palo Alto on the farm at Stanford University. The young man from Arizona, Marc Davis, has now taken the lead in the men's 5,000 meters, which translates to just a little bit longer than 3 miles.
And that's Alan Hjort from Washington now in 2nd place. Hudson from Oregon is in 3rd, and Guo from Washington State has dropped back to 5th. Again, Guo won the 10,000 meters last night. He may not have very much left. They've got a little less than 6 laps to go, Tom.
Well, there are 2 Huskies, a Wildcat, and a Cougar. As you look at the first 5 men, actually you're looking at 2 races, because the second grouping well behind what has now become just a 5-man race, and perhaps in reality we're talking about a 3-man race. Moving up for the University of Oregon, is that Hudson moving up, running in the number 3 spot now? Brad Hudson?
Hudson's in 3rd. It'll be very interesting to see how Davis reacts to some kind of a challenge. Now, he hasn't run another event here. He just blitzed out with about 3 laps to go at Mount Sac a month ago and ran that brilliant time to 13:32.58, which catapults him into one of the favorite spots for the NCAA 5,000 meter championship. But Davis will be very interesting if somebody challenges him here soon.
It's interesting, you pointed it up a moment ago, how grueling and how tough this type of competition is. There's Guo, who ran, you say, the 10,000. Now he's here for 5,000, and obviously is having an effect on him, as he is well back in the number 5 spot and at least 20-25 yards behind the number 4 runner.
Well, he put on a great kick last night, and Guo could get up there for better than a 4th place. He's staying close enough to make a challenge of this if he doesn't drop too much further behind. But it'll be interesting to see if somebody challenges Davis. They've got a little less than 6 laps to go.
Davis is leading, but not by much. A couple of yards, if you will, ahead. And Hudson now running number 3. Washington running 2nd and 4th. And that would be running 4th Donnelly, and running in the number 3 spot Al Hjort. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Hjort. And Davis was back in 1986. He was a Kinney cross-country champion as a high schooler down in San Diego, and you see he's beginning to lengthen the lead now.
Yes, he's widened a considerable gap, Vic. You're absolutely correct. 2 miles in 9:02 and 2. 9:02 and 2.
The meet record here is 13:20-3, set by the great Henry Rono from Kenya, running for Washington State back in 1978. Now, Davis is not going to come close to that record, but Marc Davis running a very strong 5,000 meters, remembering that in 2 weeks, he's going to have to run in the altitude of Provo, Utah, and run the NCAA 5,000.
I must apologize. We've almost ignored the man who's now running in the #2 spot, and that from the University of Washington is Bruce McDowell. McDowell is running in the #2 spot, and there, McDowell running in the #2 spot, and well out in front is Davis of Arizona. McDowell is running considerably behind Davis, but he is the #2 runner out there for the University of Washington. We may have inadvertently misidentified him to you.
Davis extending the lead.
McDowell running second. Hudson of Oregon is running fourth, and young man from Washington State.
3 laps to go, Tom. 3 laps to go from Marc Davis in this 5,000 meter race.
I don't know how anybody could catch him. McDowell running second. Port running third from Washington, and then Hudson of Oregon. And the field, with every step and every stride, gets more and more strung out behind the young man who appears to be inevitably the winner, and that would be Marc Davis of Arizona. McDowell has not lost any additional ground. The distance between the two has stayed pretty much the same for the last couple of laps now, but Davis does not seem to be weakening, Vic, and does not look as though he's going to give up now. Even as we glance again at the difference, it appears that he is widening his margin ever so slowly, but widening it indeed.
A very good distance running program at the University of Arizona. Matt Justo from Arizona was the NCAA 5,000 meter champion last year in Eugene, and it looks like they've got a chance, the school does, to repeat that title. 2 laps to go.
Yes, and now his lead is really beginning to widen even more and much more noticeable over McDowell. He's really just putting the entire field away. Suddenly it becomes a one-man show with the...
Well, as we prepare for the final 2 events of the afternoon, the 4x400 relay for men and the 4x400 relay for women, you see Marc Davis sort of on a training run here. This is a very, very impressive run coming into the wind with the swirling wind on this slow track. Marc Davis from the University of Arizona. We could be looking at the NCAA champion, and we could be looking at a young man who in the years to come could provide some very interesting moments in international competition for the U.S.
Let me get some expert information, if I may. This young man runs in Arizona. That's low desert country. He's going to Provo, Utah. We're talking high mountains. What effect would that have for him?
Well, he might want to go down to Flagstaff and train a little bit there for Provo, and they might think about doing that.
Will the air up there, is it anywhere near Mexico City? Are we talking about altitude like that?
Look at Davis. You see Davis right there shaking his fist. This is the thing that excites people about this guy. He's taking off right now. He does have a lot of the American distance runners in the 5,000, the 10,000, even down to 1,500 meters have been sort of laid-back guys, road racers. And if you think about the great 1,500, 5,000 meter runners in the world, the Steve Cram, the Cy Dewitas, they're all a little wacky. And that's what they like about this kid. They say he's a little wacky. He may have that kind of personality to get him where he needs to go if the United States is going to get into competition in this event, and we really have not been competitive in this event for quite some time.
Somebody waved or gave him a go-get-it across the way, and he raised a hand right back, so he's not too busy to wave to the crowd. 3 miles in 13:29. Davis of Arizona has put the field away.
And Donnelly's putting on a big kick here. He's not going to catch Davis, but this is a very fine race by Donnelly in 2nd place.
That's McDowell, number 32 from Washington, who came in second. He really ran a very fine race, but there was no way he was going to catch the kid from Arizona, Davis.
What Davis is doing right now, stopping to say a prayer or whatever, is something that a lot of distance coaches would not like to see. They want to see him keep moving at the end of a race like that.
Unofficially, we've got 13:56.2 for him.
And And that's a fine, fine time considering the fact that he was not pressed at all. A very easy run for Marc Davis.
His previous coming in was 13:32.58, so he did not nearly go as fast as he certainly has or is capable of doing. Now he's taking a little victory lap, getting a few high and low fives around the way. Marc Davis, Arizona, the winner of the men's 5,000 meter. We'll be back with more. We're at Palo Alto. We'll be back right after this. Will be for the men, and through 19 events, UCLA with a very impressive margin, 141 to 110 over Oregon, with Arizona now with 91 points. And for the women, the story remains UCLA on top, 139 points, 86 for Oregon and 60 for Arizona. That through 16 events with women's competition. Coming up will be the men's 4x400 relay. I'm going to run two sections of this. USC has the Pac-10 meet record, 3:05.3 and 78. University of Southern California has scratched out of this race. First two lanes are going to be open, and then it'll be Oregon, UCLA, Arizona, and Washington. Weigelt will run the third leg for the University of Oregon. As we have their unit put together, it's Bob Gray, Brian Wright, Klaus Weigelt, and Curtis Wilson. Or is Weigelt going to run the anchor? He'll run the anchor. Wilson will run the third leg. For UCLA, Mike Stevenson, Mike Marsh is listed here, along with Chucky Brooks and Steve Lewis.
Mike Marsh is down there warming up, so we will probably see Marsh. Steve Lewis is also down there. You know, the thing about the 4x4, if you think about UCLA, 9 times, the history of UCLA in the 4x4 is magnificent. 9 times Bruin 4x400 teams have won NCAA championships. There's a rich tradition at the school in the 400 meters, going all the way back to the middle 30s when Jimmy Lavelle was the bronze medalist at the Berlin Olympic Games, Wayne Collette, John Smith in the 60s and 70s. A gold medal from Steve Lewis, a bronze medal from Danny Everett, both from UCLA at the Olympic Games. What a rich tradition for the Bruins in this event.
Dwight Stones, a thought from you, sir, if you will.
Well, think about the other guys on the other teams that are not in contention. There's no chance of altering the team standings at this time. UCLA has run away from it, having to endure the weather that they have had to do all day long, running multiple races, running against a strong UCLA team, which is almost redundant because they always are, and having to go out and run another leg of the 4x400 meters. I mean, I did this a couple times in college, and I have to tell you, when you're out of it and there's no chance, you have a tough time getting 4 guys who are willing to run this race.
Well, that's a good point, Dwight. I think it points up the dedication and just what kind of individual it takes to get involved in this kind of a sport. It is a sport that requires tremendous dedication, a personal sacrifice, if you will, without getting too, melodramatic about it. But it truly is that kind of a sport. And it must be difficult, as you pointed out, to know that you have no chance of winning unless everybody wearing the blue and gold should fall down. And you've waited around all afternoon, and now suddenly you have to go out there and run 400 as fast and as hard as you can go. It takes a special kind of individual, but that's what this sport is all about.
Now, Tom, having said what we said earlier about the rich tradition at UCLA in this race, this great UCLA team with the Olympic champion, if you can believe this, has not yet qualified for the NCAA championships. They have to run 3:06 flat or better. They have not done that yet this year. Against LSU about a month ago, they just missed it. So they've got to run 3:06 flat either today, or they'll have to do it the last chance at a meet either at Mount San Antonio College next Friday or an all-comers meet, sort of a last chance meet in San Diego a week from today. So it could very well be, and I noticed that he's got a pretty good team down there. He's got Mike Stevenson, Mike Marsh, Chucky Brooks, and Steve Lewis. John Smith, the sprint coach, works with the head coach, Bob Larson at UCLA, may be trying to qualify them here. Now, it's going to be tough on this track with no competition running into this wind, but they are capable of doing it with this team.
Well, if they should indeed qualify at 3:06, it would be because they wanted it and conceivably will not be pushed into it, just that they have to go out and do it. And so they're running strictly against the clock and not against anybody else on the track. Though that is not to denigrate the talents of the Oregon squad or that of Arizona or the University of Washington, but just on paper, Stevenson, Marsh, Brooks, and Lewis would appear to be as good as anything that ever walked on the track, at least in this event, or certainly in this track meet. Running first for Oregon will be Bob Gray. Mike Stevenson will run the first leg for UCLA. Aaron Rutterer will run the first leg for the University of Arizona, and Todd Schutte will run the first leg for Washington. Then McKay and Short and Rowe to finish up for the Huskies. Foreman and Jones and Senior to run for Arizona. Marsh and Brooks and Lewis to run the anchor leg. How'd you like to be running the anchor leg and look over and see Steve Lewis going the 400 against you?
I think I'd pull a muscle real quick.
Weigelt will run the anchor leg for Oregon.
Now they will be running a 3-turn stagger, which means that they'll stay in lanes for the entire first lap, stay in lanes for the first 100 meters of the second leg. So it's going to be very deceptive to see who's winning the race, because they're going to be running totally in staggers. The way to decide who is winning is to see who hands off first at the end of this first leg. Mike Stevenson leading off for UCLA. Remember, the Bruins have not yet qualified their 4x4 team for the NCAA championship.
And remember also that while Dwight and Vic and I have all but given this event to the Bruins, they must handle the baton well, and they must not step out of lane. They must not get disqualified. That has happened to a couple of runners in the last couple of days, so indeed they do have some things to worry about, much less beating the rest of the field and probably running that 3:06. Stevenson is leading off.
Again, as they're running in staggers, it's a little deceptive, but I think Stevenson has about a 2-meter lead here on the field. We can tell as they come up and hand off.
That's a Rutterer of Arizona.
A great high school talent from Nevada, Aaron Rutterer from Arizona.
And the first handoff is to his teammate, and that would be Foreman of Arizona, who has the lead.
And obviously they're not running a 3-turn stagger, they're running a 2-turn stagger.
48.8 for Stevenson in the 4:40. The splits. Check and keep track of all of that for you with the object, of course, how do they handle the 3:06 to qualify? It's a mile relay.
Now this is going to be very interesting. Marsh has some ground to make up here. Chucky Brooks is going to have to run a very tough third leg, and Steve Lewis may really have to lay it out on the anchor leg. Could be interesting. Here comes Mike Marsh now from UCLA.
Trying to overtake, and he does. Overtakes Arizona. Mike Marsh will be handing off to Chucky Brooks, and Brooks has the baton. Arizona with Mark's Macon Jones running in the third leg. Marsh went the quarter mile in 45.7. Chucky Brooks has taken a big, huge lead now, and running in the number 2 spot is Jones of Arizona.
Steve Lewis on anchor for UCLA. Chucky Brooks about 110 meters away from handing off to the Olympic champion, Steve Lewis, the 20-year-old sophomore, double gold medalist at the 1988 Olympics in Seoul. Chucky Brooks about to hand the baton to Steve Lewis.
I think it's safe to assume if the baton is passed well, and it is, that the UCLA is going to win it. Stepping out now is Steve Lewis. I think what we're concerned now about is that 3:06 qualifying for the NCAA. Brooks a 48.2. So Marsh with a 45.7, truly running a fine leg. The number 2 leg gave Brooks a very big lead. And now Brooks has given it to Lewis, who I don't think could be caught by anything short of a speeding bullet.
200 meters to go for the Olympic champion, the 20-year-old Steve Lewis, 3:06 flat. They've got to equal that or better it to qualify this team for the NCAA.
That's a great run by Senior, running the anchor leg for Arizona. He's running in the number 2 spot, though he looks like he's backing up a bit as Lewis wins it easily. Coming on is Oregon, trying to get second place, and Oregon will.
And that's Weigelt, the West German from Munich, anchoring for the Oregon Ducks.
And taking second behind UCLA, and unofficially they're just 3:07 and 8, which is not 3:06.
Which means that the Bruins have one last chance to qualify their 4x400 team, and if they don't qualify the 4x400 team, they have little chance of defending their NCAA championship.
Vic, without really tearing this whole thing apart, Stevenson a 48.8. Marsh a 45.7, Lewis a 45.2, Stevenson and Brooks running 48s. anything in there better than that would certainly put him to under 306.
Oh, sure, sure. Derek Knight, an outstanding hurdler for UCLA, was out of this meet with an injury. He could have scored points in both the 110-meter hurdles and the 400-meter hurdles. You put Derek Knight on this team, and Knight can split in the 45s. They would have easily qualified, easily.
Well, it was a great run. And Lewis 45.4 to anchor it. UCLA, and now the time is even up a bit at 3:08.2. Remember, they need 3:06 to qualify for the NCAA up at Provo, Utah in 2 weeks. So time's a-fleeting. Old Tempest is fugiting on the Bruins, but as you say, they've got so many talented people, one or two they could drop in there that would lower a couple of those marks and put them right there qualifying for it.
Well, they do have that one last chance, and of course Danny Everett, who chose to discontinue running in college. He's running on the quote-unquote professional circuit now. Danny Everett would have been a senior this year, the bronze medalist at the Olympic Games. Of course, you put Everett on this team. Last year, Steve Lewis, Kevin Young, Danny Everett, and Henry Thomas, the greatest collegiate 4x400 team in history.
All right, before we see the next group in this 400 or mile relay, let me remind you to stay up to date with the latest from the world of Bruin athletics by watching the UCLA Sports Magazine. See it each Thursday on Prime Ticket. Sports television at its best. Well, we've got Washington State, University of California at Berkeley, and Stanford. We've got 3